We still have another day until the Dolphins play football on Monday Night Football action against the Jets. But before the games kick off on Sunday, I wanted to answer some questions from the Dolphins fans. I'm Nick Roloff. This is Dolphins Today. And if you missed it, make sure you join our Thursday live shows. We're live on Thursday every single day of the season. First question coming in from Tyson Bryant. If Dolphins trade Tyreek, should Dolphins look to get a cornerback back, or should we just get in draft and free agency? Here's the thing, Tyson. At this point in the year, if you're trading Tyreek Hill, that means you're selling and you're not trying to compete. So unless you get a young future CB, there is no reason to try to get a cornerback. You should try to just get the best draft capital you can get, where you can use that on any position you want or in a different type of trade. So if you're trading Tyreek Hill, which I think Miami should, because they'll not be contending for a Super Bowl or a playoff spot this year in all likelihood, I would just prioritize getting the best draft capital you can get in return. And then when you think about addressing cornerback this offseason for years to come, yes, you think about draft. You think about maybe making a trade as well. I've mentioned this many times before. Even if the Dolphins are out, I do still think maybe buying low on a young corner that's on the trade market could make a lot of sense. Look at Greg Newsome, from Cleveland. 1 year left on his deal. He's a solid young corner. If Miami traded Tyreek Hill for a third and then used that third to get Greg Newsome, it'd be a great deal. So I guess I'm half answering your question yes, half answering no. I'm not trading Tyreek Hill for a corner, but I would trade Tyreek Hill for draft capital, and I would not shy away from using other draft capital to acquire a young corner that may be here for a while. All right, if you didn't get featured on this mailbag, well, got to make sure you're subscribed and join us for our Thursday live shows. But also, you can hit me up on Twitter for questions. Handles at Nick_Roloff. Go ask me a question in the DMs or in my replies. Ryan with a question. Do you feel it's unfair to erase the good things Tua did against the Bills all because of the interception at the end? I do not think it's unfair. I really don't. Here's the moral of the story when it comes to NFL quarterbacks. You are supposed to make the plays in the biggest moments. And with Tua, he has consistently fell flat on his face when the Dolphins needed him most. He has 7 touchdowns to 7 interceptions with a QB rating in the 70s in the final 5 minutes of a ball game when the Dolphins are trailing by a score. So every time the Dolphins need him to lead a comeback drive, to take the lead or tie the game, he has not been able to get it done. And even though he was good for 2 quarters against the Bills, quarters number 2 and 3, a franchise quarterback is able to get the job done in the 4th. And a franchise quarterback is able to be bad for 3 quarters, but come up big in the 4th quarter when it's necessary to win the game. It's vice versa. We praise quarterbacks for struggling and then making the clutch plays in the 4th. Well, then you also got to be fair and say, okay, I don't care if you've been good for 3 quarters. If you shit the bed and we lose in the 4th quarter, I want to be pretty critical. Luis with a question. You think Dolphins versus Jets will be a close game? I do, actually. My full score prediction is coming out on Monday morning in our day of preview. But I think the Dolphins win this game. I think it will be a 1-score game. Now, the Dolphins, as I'm currently filming this, are 3-point favorites. I do think they cover that spread. But I think it will still be a 1-score game where it's probably back and forth. I don't think any of these teams are very good. I think both of them are likely picking in the top 10 when it's all said and done in April of 2026, which means it'll be close. And both defenses are horrific, bottom 10 in the NFL. I expect a little bit of a high-scoring game. I mentioned the spread in this game is 3 points in favor of Miami at home. The over-under is 44.5. I would take the over, and I would take the Dolphins if you're getting to where I'm at in terms of my score prediction. But what's your confidence level in the Dolphins on Monday Night Football? Pin comment on today's show. Give me a number 1 through 10. No rookie numbers. Don't be afraid to use that decimal. Fat Boy with a question. will Mike McDaniel keep his job if he keeps making good play calls like he did in Buffalo? No, because they lost. I'll say this when it comes to McDaniel. I know a lot of us Dolphins fans get upset with his play calling at times, but there are a lot of instances where he is in his Duffy calling plays. I thought he was awesome against New England calling plays, and I thought he was pretty solid against the Bills calling plays. At times, I think he gets away from what works, and he gets too razzle-dazzle, which drives me up a wall. But I think he's a solid play caller. With that being said, he needs to be the head coach of this football team, not a good play caller. Obviously, if he's doing both, you want both to be good. But I would rather him be a bad play caller and a good head coach. You know what I mean? I know we have to deal in a world where he does both, but there's no world where he keeps his job because he calls good plays. He can't lead this organization. He doesn't lead a locker room. And the Dolphins keep on losing games against good teams because of a lot of different reasons, but one of them is because of him. So, no, he's not keeping his job because of good play calling. Tim, I know it's early, but what about the 2026 QB draft class? Yeah, I put out a video on Friday afternoon labeling my top 5 quarterbacks that are draft eligible right now. This is the order I had them in. If I had to make draft selections now, and obviously there's a lot of time until April, to where you get the rest of the college season, pre-draft process, more film review, interviews, more intel. But I have Lenore Sellers from South Carolina as my number 1 guy. I have Fernando Mendoza from Indiana at number 2, John Mateer from Oklahoma at 3, Aller at 4, and Garrett Nussmeier at 5 from LSU. It's twofold with the Dolphins. Let's be real. We're not a quarterback away from competing for a Super Bowl. There's not. Now, would a top 10 quarterback in the NFL have the Dolphins probably 2-1 at this point? Because they probably would have beat New England and they probably would have beat Buffalo if they had top 10 quarterback play? Yeah. But this defense has been so bad in the secondary and in the front 7 to where you can't win a Super Bowl like that. So it would just be elite quarterback play on a bad team. With that being said, if the Dolphins are picking top 5 this year, it's going to be hard to pass on a QB. But they certainly need to add almost everywhere defensively, and they need to add another offensive tackle because Austin Jackson simply ain't cutting it either. More questions to be answered, but this episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every single day. Well, the right decisions on PrizePicks can get you paid where it's good to be right this football season. PrizePicks puts their users first. All withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. PrizePicks also offers injury reboots. What does that mean? If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return due to injury, PrizePicks will not count it as a loss. Now, I do have an entry in for this Monday Night Football game between Miami and New York. I got more than Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson rushing and receiving yards respectively. And I'm also pairing that up with a demon, Ollie Gordon, more than rushing and receiving touchdowns. I think he gets into pay dirt here. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Links in the description and comments of today's video. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Adrian Diaz with a question. What do you think Miami's best result is to finish this year off, looking for what's best for the team? Are you asking what record do I think the Dolphins finish with, or what is the best outcome for the rest of the year? I'm going to take it as the latter. I think the best outcome for the Dolphins has nothing to do with their record. Nothing. They could finish 0-17. Don't care. But the number one thing that would make me happy is to see Jonah Savaiinaea and Kenneth Grant start to become productive, impactful players for this football team. That's really it. Because all I'm looking for at this point is to see some of these young guys on the roster really start to find their footing in the NFL and be looked at as cornerstones of this franchise. Patrick Paul has been awesome. Hopefully that continues. Devon Achane's been awesome. But we're going to see a massive shift in this roster. a lot of one-year contract guys that won't be here next year. And assuming we get a new head coach and GM and a new regime, we're going to get a ton of roster overhaul. If you're not on a rookie contract or a long-term deal, you're likely out of here. So the thing that I want to see is I want to see our first and second round picks from the past couple of years start the ball out. Patrick Paul is already doing that. Let's see Chop Robinson regain his form from the end of last year. He's had a brutal start to the season. And I'd like to see our first and second round picks this year start to be impactful guys. Because Kenneth Grant's been a 0. And Jonah Savaiinaea hasn't even been a 0. He's been a negative. He's been the worst offensive guard in football through 3 weeks. So it's like if we can have those guys start to be contributing factors, well, then that makes me happy. So the best result to finish the year is seeing your first and second round picks for the past couple of years start to be high-level players. One of them already is, and Patrick Paul this year. Chop, Kenneth, and Jonah, they've all been pretty bad so far to start 2025. Make sure you do subscribe to the channel because we have daily content that is informative, entertainment, and we are the most interactive Dolphins community on YouTube in our live chats, in our community pages, in our comment section. Subscribe today to join the Dolphins Today family. Patrick Green. We need a quarterback who can play in the Northeast, especially wintertime. Hopefully, Chris Brewer will be gone. Well, amen on the second part there. Hopefully, Greer's gone. But when it comes to the quarterback play, I agree. Listen, I know Miami is a southern team, but let's think about the teams you have to beat in January to potentially win a Super Bowl. Kansas City Chiefs. We know it gets freezing in Kansas City. The Buffalo Bills. Nowhere else snows more in the entire United States. Fun fact, by the way. Number 2 is Rochester, New York, my hometown. Number 3, Baltimore Ravens. Northeast, cold team. The Pittsburgh Steelers are notoriously good. Like, the only teams that you don't have to worry about the Northeast cold conditions in a playoff game is when you play a team from the AFC South. But those teams aren't ever contending for a Super Bowl either. So I do agree with you, Patrick Green. The next quarterback that we have has to be able to have the physical traits to be uber impactful in that type of mode. Whether it's the arm strength and arm talent to throw the ball with velocity in cold weather and through windy conditions. Or a quarterback that is so athletic and so mobile to where you can create a different game script and have a unbelievable offensive rushing attack because they can run the ball. Which is why when I am continuously looking at quarterbacks I'm intrigued with, my top 4 in this draft currently is Lenore Sellers, number 1, 6'4", 240, best mobile quarterback in this draft, him or Mateer, and he's also got a cannon. Mendoza, strong arm, is a little mobile, 6'5". Mateer, elite runner of the football, physical, can run in tight quarters, and Drew Aller, who's got an absolute nuke of an arm. So I agree, and that's why those are my top 4 quarterbacks in this draft. Fan life. Jets QB will get put in the dirt about half a dozen times and more this week. I mean, I don't know about that one, Chief. Listen, we're going to call a spade here. I was super optimistic about the Dolphins' pass rush and defensive front 7 coming into the year. They've been awful. They have a bottom 5 pressure rate in the NFL this season. They were bottom 5 against the Colts. They were the worst pressure rate team in Week 3 against the Bills. They only pressured Josh Allen on 9% of his dropbacks. Unacceptable. Like, the Dolphins have not been able to get any pressure. And with Justin Fields in at quarterback for the Jets, he'll be able to make people miss in the pocket, make plays happen with his legs. I just don't think this Dolphins pass rush is as good as I thought it was going to be. So I don't expect them to be in the backfield hitting and sacking Justin Fields consistently like you think, fan life. Sorry to be a negative, but that's kind of where I'm at. All right, I'll do it for this Q&A edition of Dolphins Today. As I mentioned earlier in the video, if you did not get featured on our mailbag, well, you either have to join us for our live shows on Thursdays and Mondays, or you can hit me up on Twitter at Nick_Roloff.